Okay, so let's take a closer look at what Tim played. And if you guys remember when we were talking about the waveform and how everything is going to look when you're working with guitar DIs, you can see, you know, we've got that transient, we've got that pick attack, we've got the sustain, and these are all the different notes that Tim played. So the first thing that's important about editing guitars, like I said, is preserving the pick attack. So if we determine that we'd like to move some things around, we need to be careful to not remove that pick attack or to destroy it. For example, this looks a little late. So if I wanted to move this forward, I would need to make sure that I don't remove this part of the sound because that is the pick attack. And if I did remove that sound, I would start removing some of the identity of what makes a guitar sound like a guitar. That initial transient and that initial pick attack, that's, you know, this part of the sound is so important because it defines that it's an electric guitar. So basically some of the tips I want to tell you is that I like to edit to the grid. So if I know that something is early or late, I actually like to cut to the grid, and then I will put my pick attack back in. So I'll try to explain what I'm talking about here. So for example, I see that you know, this one's perfectly on time, but this one's late. So what I'll do is I'll actually go in and turn my snapping on. I'll put a cut right there on the grid, and I will pull this back. And if it doesn't let me pull it back anymore, go ahead and cut the ending of it off. Go back over here, pull it back some more. And now I've got it kind of in line with the other guitar, as you can see here. So then what about my pick attack? Because now it's gone. Well, one of the first tricks that you want to learn to do is the nudge. And so in Cubase, it's literally as simple as just clicking here and then clicking this little nudge guy. Now, when I did that, it went back really far because it's based on this quantized value. So a good value to use is like a 128th note, for example. When you do that, you can see it puts it right back in there. Or a 64th note is also pretty good. So you can see that. It puts the pick attack right back in there. And at most tempos, these values will be pretty accurate. Another thing I like to do when I edit guitars is always remove the hit points. I don't like to do a lot of time stretching with my guitars. I prefer to, you know, cut the note itself and actually physically drag that note around on, you know, on the project window, or slip edit it. So this is all about preserving the pick attack. So I'm all about making sure that I either, if I do my cuts on the grid like this, I'm making sure that after I make an edit that I trim the beginning backwards so that I preserve that pick attack. And what I've found that makes the most sense in terms of editing for timing is that the pick attack and the transient need to happen before the grid line. For whatever reason, that to me just always sounds right. So this is like dead on. See how there's a little bit of sound right before the grid line? To me, that's like the best way to do it. For here, I would need to, like, you know, make a cut right here, pull this back, and then do my trim left, boom. That's going to sound better on time. Now, another technique that we're going to talk about is slip editing, and I'll go into more detail about that later, but I kind of wanted to show you just real quickly what it would be like if I was going to actually cut and edit every single one of these palm mutes and how I would preserve the pick attack, just as like an overview. So I would start by putting my grid into, let's say, eighth notes, and I'm going to remove some of the silence at the beginning, and I'm just cutting everything like dead on to the grid right now. Okay, and I'm going to do a little bit of slip editing. Don't worry, we're going to talk about that in a bit. And you're going to see some crazy stuff like that audio just doubled up because it was not long enough. But all I'm worrying about is where things start, okay? I'm not worrying about where they end, just where they start. So just go through, do that for every note. And I'm putting one cut per note and then shifting it to be on time. So now that I've done that, I've created some situations where you can see that this note was too short. It didn't have enough length to get to the next note in order to put everything on time. What's really interesting is that from here we can select all these edits that we've just done, and we can grab our 64th note and we can trim the end left and then trim the start left. And by doing that, we've essentially shifted all of our cuts to the left by a 64th note. And we can actually do that another time. And you'll notice that now it starts to become a lot cleaner. There's no doubles anymore. All of our notes start in the right place and all of our pick attack is preserved. And I would probably take this one step further, maybe undo that last move we just did and keep a little bit of overlap, as you can see, and then do a nice crossfade on everything. So that crossfade is actually happening quite like a 64th note ahead of the pick attack, and it's happening on the release or the ring out of the palm mute. And so now that we've done that, I'm going to hit the crossfade one more time, throw the S curve in there as my edit, and there we go. So let's go ahead and take a listen and just see how clean this sounds. Here we go. And it's perfectly on time, and you can't even tell that I ever touched or edited it. We've preserved all the pick attack, and everything sounds cool. It looks like Joel just pointed out that actually one of the edits is audible, and I want to show you guys how to fix that. So if we listen to the left side really carefully, and I'm going to highlight it right here with my mouse. If you listen right here, you're going to hear this pick scrape thing pretty much happen because it repeats twice and it creates a little sound. So here's what it sounds like. So right before this chord is struck, you can hear a little sound. And what's really cool about this setup is now that we've made a cut and we've made an edit for each thing, we can actually drag these little crossfades around and change where our edit point happens. What I would do in this case is I would just move this back one little notch, and let's take a listen and see if that fixes it. So here's before, and here's after. And sometimes that's kind of all it takes, just that one little move, and you'll fix things right up.